Hello, kids. It is story time. Okay. Have you ever listened to stories from your grandparents? Well, today's lesson is going to be on the narrative essay. The narrative essay. We're going to be looking at the narrative and story writing. The narrative and story writing. Okay, let's begin. If you want to share a good story or a well-written one about something that happened in your life or someone else's life, a narrative essay is a good way to do that. In this lesson, you will be taught the following. 1. The basic definition of the narrative essay. 2. The key characteristics of a narrative essay. 3. How to tell an interesting story about something that has happened to you. Alright, what then is a narrative text? It tells a story to entertain the reader. A narrative often includes an orientation, a conflict, and a resolution. A narrative is usually fiction or a made-up story. It is also a real-life story, a real-life experience. Examples, we have a novel, a play, a fable, and a short story. Now, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been blamed for something you did not do? Have you ever been blamed for something you did not do? Have you ever experienced something like that? Can you still remember how you felt like on that particular day? That is exactly what happened to me, and I turned it into a narrative essay. Now, before you read this interesting story, there are some things I would like to share with you. A narrative essay is a story written about you or someone else that does the following. 1. It retells something that happened in the order in which the event happened. That means it tells the story in a chronological order. Event 1 leading to event 2 to event 3. It just keeps going on like that. Okay? The second one is that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm referring to the story. It must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. 3. It provides the settings where the story took place. 4. It gives interesting details and tries to hit all of the 5 senses. 5. It gives enough details for the reader to feel emotion. And 6. It teaches a lesson. Okay, let's hear my story. Listen attentively as I read, and you can read with me as well. The small playground where my friends and I used to play always smelled of garbage and flowers. There were dump sites on one side, and Madame Nkem's house on the other side had a nice flower garden. So, the competing smell always met at the middle. One day, we had just finished playing a game of hide and seek. We were about to go home when Madame Nkem came out to inspect her flowers. The next thing we saw was Madame Nkem storming towards us. We froze in fear when we saw the rancor in her eyes. She stepped in front of us and said, "Who has been picking my rose flowers?" She looked at us like we were the pests in the garden, and I could tell that she was deciding who would get the full dose of her pesticides. She chose me. "You did it. You picked my flowers. You have the most innocent face. With her long, scary fingers in my face, I felt so vulnerable, and without the word, I ran from the playground. Later on, whenever I passed through her yard, I could feel the anger rising in my body. I didn't know or care who had been picking her flowers, and choosing me because I looked innocent made no sense at all. I never played another game in that playground again. I didn't want to give Madam Nkem the satisfaction of accusing me again. 12 years later, I found that the Madam Nkem had died 6 months after the flower incident. I later found out that she was suffering from depression and that the company of my friends and I would have done her a whole lot of good if only she had extended an arm of friendship. If I sit quietly right now, I can still see the animosity on her face. I wish I could get that time back. Instead of wasting it on holding a grudge, I could have spent it being happy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed my story. Now, let's check out the narrative points. Okay, so we sit down and we ask ourselves some certain questions. The truth is, we want to find out if this essay touched all the narrative points. Are you ready? Let's check it out. Did it retell something that happened? Did the story retell something that happened? Yes. It told the story of when I was playing with my friends and Madam Nkem accused me of picking her flowers. Now we ask ourselves another question. Did it go in a chronological order? Yes. Right? Because it started when I was a kid and ended 12 years later. Did it describe the setting where the story took place? Again, the answer is yes, in the playground. Did it give interesting details? Yes, it gave details like the way the playground smelled. Did it give enough details for the reader to feel emotion? Yes, it described my anger and regret. Does the story have a beginning, a middle, and an end? The answer is yes. The beginning was a meeting at the playground where my friends and I played. The middle was the accusation from Madam Nkem and how it made me feel. And the end was a realization of what I should have done differently and the lesson I learned. Okay? Did it teach a lesson? You have to ask yourself this very important question. Did the story teach a lesson? The answer is yes. It taught me that holding a grudge is a waste of time. Okay, let's do a review of what we learned in today's lesson. The first thing is that narrative writing tells a story. You agree with me, right? Okay. Narrative writing has characters. It can be real or make-believe. It could be something we experienced or something that we just imagined. It has a setting. In my story, the setting was the playground, right? So a narrative essay or narrative writing has a setting. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And of course, a narrative writing has sequential order. Event 1 leads to event 2, to event 3, and it keeps going on and on. Okay, you've heard my story. Now, what's your story? What's your story? Because you need to share your story with me too. So what you do for me is you write down the title of your story in the notes section that has been made available for you on the portal. I will be looking forward to the details of your story when you eventually submit the assignment that will be given to you. Till our next lesson, I want you to always remember that to be successful, you have to use each day as an opportunity to improve, to be better, to get a bit closer to your goals. It might sound like a lot of work, right? But the best part is, the more you accomplish, the more you would want to do, the higher you'd want to reach. So, as long as you have the hunger for success, you will always, and I mean always, have the power within you to achieve it. Now, I need you to do something for me. You know what that is? You will do something today that your future self will thank you for. Until our next lesson, it is bye from Mrs. Yardley. Stay safe and be good.